Hello and welcome. My name is Leslie Smith and I'm going to be teaching this course on preventive controls for animal food. A little bit about myself to get started here. I have a bachelor's degree in biology from Portland State University in beautiful Portland, Oregon. I also did my graduate program there and hold a master's of science in teaching and a master's of education in curriculum and instruction. I've also been certified by the FSPCA, that's the Food Safety Preventive Control Alliance, as a lead instructor for both their classes on preventive controls for animal food and their class on preventive controls for human food. That said, I am required to show you this disclosure right here. Essentially what this says is that even though I've been trained by the FSPCA, I am not one of their employees, and they're not legally responsible for anything I say during this course. I am also not legally responsible for anything you do after you take this course. The Food Safety Preventive Control Alliance is a group of individuals from industry and academia and also regulation that came together to take the Food Safety Modernization Act, which is a recently passed FDA regulation, and develop a curriculum to help people understand each of the different parts of the Food Safety Modernization Act, or FSMA as I like to refer to it. Sometimes you'll hear me refer to the FSPCA as just the Alliance, so if I say that, that's who I'm talking about. So that's what we're going to be doing in this course, is going over their standardized curriculum for the preventive controls for animal food. Now, this curriculum has been recognized by the FDA as an adequate and appropriate method of understanding Part 507 of FSMA, that's the animal food rule part. And successfully completing this curriculum or this course is one of the ways that you can legally meet the requirements for being a preventive controls qualified individual. If you don't know what that is yet, don't worry. We're going to be going over that definition and exactly what it means in just a little while. Here are some of our course objectives. First and foremost, like I just mentioned, we're going to be meeting the training requirements for being a PCQI under this Animal Food Rule Part 507 of FSMA. We're also going to be spending time distinguishing between current good manufacturing practices, other GMP programs, and preventive controls. Kind of see what the actual difference is between a preventive control and a GMP, and how that kind of plays out in the regulatory framework. The third bullet point is an important one, and I think one that we'll spend most of our time on. We're going to learn what a hazard analysis is, what that process looks like, what kind of resources we can use to help us with that process, and also what kind of skills we're going to need to complete that process. We're also going to be learning the different concepts needed to build a food safety plan, and really this is kind of the final product that comes out of compliance with Part 507. Most facilities have a food safety system already in place, so we're just going to take a look at how this regulation treats a food safety plan, what kind of things are required for it, and how that can fit within current food safety systems. I should tell you that this course is intended and kind of written for industry folks, so people actually working in the animal food industry at this time. So if you hear some of that language of speaking about your facility, that's kind of why it's written that way. That said, regulators will also be taking this same course to familiarize themselves with the regulation, and it's important for people that are not currently working in the animal food industry as well to understand what it really means and what the regulation says about creating and producing safe animal food. That said, what's not intended by this class is that you will not walk away with a completed food safety plan. A food safety plan is something that is going to take, quite frankly, take a lot of time and a lot of experience and a lot of different brains to actually come together and produce something that works for an individual facility. So we're definitely going to be looking at exactly what the regulation says about what's required. We're going to be practicing some of the skills and looking at some documentation that you could possibly use, but we will not be creating a food safety plan for your individual facility. I should also address that this course is also intended to be delivered in an in-person, in-classroom experience, so we'll be making some modifications for our online platform as we go. You should have purchased or printed off a student manual to help you through this course. This slide right here gives us an idea of what kind of things to expect in each of the chapters in this curriculum. We will first start with the chapter objectives, and then if you ever see a light blue box with some italicized text, that's how you know we're looking at the regulation itself. We will actually be going through almost all of Part 507 and looking at the regulatory text. So if you ever see those italicized text, that's how you know that's what we're looking at. We will then also talk about what that actually means in terms that are a little bit easier to understand than FDA regulation, and also look at how that can actually be applied and look at some example food safety plans. We'll also be doing class exercises, and like I said, these are mostly designed to be in classroom, in-person experiences, so we'll be modifying them a bit and using them as assignments for our online class. Active participation is absolutely essential for this class. For our online version of this class, we're going to be using assignments in each of the modules for you guys to practice and demonstrate your understanding of the learning objectives. And we're also going to be doing a live discussion at the very end of the course. It's absolutely essential that during this live discussion, you guys come to share your examples, you listen to other people's examples, and ask any questions that you have about the curriculum at that point. It's really those conversations that make this course really robust and worthwhile for everyone that takes it. You may also mark up your student manuals. Those are yours to keep, obviously, so making notes in them, using sticky notes to mark pages, all of that is going to be really important for you to be able to come back and reference that material when you're actually sitting down to make your food safety plan. Here's the actual curriculum layout that we're going to be going over. We have 10 different chapters, and then you will also have 4 appendices in the back of your student manual. I'd like you to pause the recording at this point and use a sticky note to tab both Appendix 1 and Appendix 4. Appendix 1 is the actual animal food rule, so that's actual Part 507 of the Food Safety Modernization Act. I find this really helpful to reference if you ever have questions about what the rule actually says. It's right there for you. Also, throughout this course, I find that sometimes it's almost easier to read the regulation itself as opposed to the slides. So there you have it for reference whenever you need it. Immediately after that, there's some technical amendments, so you can see how things have changed since the final rule was published. And then Appendix number 4 is our example food safety plan. This by no means is a completely fleshed out food safety plan, but it gives you an idea of what the FDA is looking for in their food safety plan, in a food safety plan, and also might serve as a good template for when you're going to write your own. These are the 2 example food safety plans that we're going to be working with. In the animal food industry, we tend to treat pet food, aka dog and cat food, very differently than we treat livestock feed, mostly because there's different hazards involved, there's different intended species involved, and so we're going to be looking at an example of each of those. On the left-hand side, we have the multi-species medicated and non-medicated feeds, so that's going to be our livestock example. We'll be feeding horses and cattle and sheep from that facility. And then on the right-hand side, we're going to be producing dry extruded dog and cat food. Keep in mind that these are just examples. What we're going to see throughout this curriculum is that a good food safety plan is tailored to the facility that is using it. All facilities are different. All facilities have different intended species. They have different manufacturing practices. They have different hazards, and they have different safety histories. So all of that kind of plays into how we write out our food safety plan, and the the things that we have to do to control hazards in our facility. So just keep that in mind. These examples are good for kind of facilitating our conversations and for helping me to communicate the important understanding learning objectives, but they are just examples and by no means are the end-all be-all for a good food safety plan. In fact, I'm going to point out some things that I would change about each of these examples as we go along as well. Here's some contact information for the FSPCA. They are currently working on a technical assistance network, so that might be available for you. The FDA also has a technical assistance network, and a simple Google search can help you get to that website. They're pretty good about answering your questions about FSMA and Part 507, and that comes directly from an FDA representative. You may also want to reference the preamble to Part 507. There was a lot of thought and time put into the preamble, and a lot of common questions are answered in that preamble. That is in the actual Federal Register, and again, a simple Google search can help you find that. So if you ever have a question, I recommend searching the preamble first, and if your question is not answered that way, you can always use the technical assistant networks to submit a question. Okay, that does it for our introduction. I hope that gives you an idea of kind of some of the background of FSPCA and this course itself. And next we'll move on to Chapter 1, where we get into the actual nitty-gritty of the rule.